The lawyer had barely finished reading the will when my brother leaned back in his chair with the confidence of someone who had just won the biggest prize of his life. "Well," he said with a satisfied smile, tapping the thick stack of papers on the table, "looks like Dad trusted me with everything." No one in the room said a word. My aunt stared at the carpet. My cousin shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Even the lawyer avoided eye contact. But I didn't react the way everyone expected. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse anyone of anything. Instead, I smiled. A calm, quiet smile. Because my brother believed he had just taken our father's entire inheritance. But what he didn't know was that my father had already predicted this exact moment. And he had prepared something for it. Something my brother would never see coming. Growing up, my brother Daniel and I were completely different people. Daniel was the kind of person who loved attention. He was confident, ambitious, and extremely competitive. If there was a trophy to win, he wanted it. If there was money to earn, he wanted more of it. He moved to the city at 22, got a high-paying job in finance, and quickly built a life full of expensive suits, luxury apartments, and flashy cars. Every time he visited home, he made sure everyone knew how successful he was. Hard work pays off, he liked to say while checking his watch. That probably cost more than my car. Our father would just nod quietly. Then there was me. I stayed in our small hometown. I worked a normal job. Nothing glamorous. Nothing impressive. But I stayed close to Dad. After Mom passed away years ago, he started needing more help. So I fixed things around the house, drove him to appointments, and helped him manage the property. Most nights we would sit on the old wooden porch and talk for hours about life, memories, and the strange way time passes faster when you get older. Dad never compared us. He never said Daniel was better. He never said I was better. He simply treated us both with quiet kindness. But deep down, I always wondered what would happen when he was gone. The day my father died was strangely peaceful. He had been sick for months and everyone knew the time was coming. That morning, the sky was clear and calm. When the phone rang, I already knew what it meant. 3 days later, we buried him beside my mother under the big oak tree near the church. Daniel arrived wearing a perfectly tailored black suit and dark sunglasses. He hugged people, accepted condolences, and handled everything like a businessman managing an event. But I noticed something strange. He kept asking relatives the same question. Did Dad ever talk about the will? At the time, I didn't think much about it. But sitting inside the lawyer's office a week later, I understood exactly what he had been waiting for. The office felt heavy with silence. There were about 10 of us in the room. Family members, a few close friends, and the lawyer who had known my father for nearly 30 years. Daniel sat confidently at the table, his posture relaxed, his fingers lightly tapping the wood, surface like someone waiting for confirmation of something he already knew. He leaned toward me and whispered, "You look nervous." "I'm not," I replied. He smirked. "You probably should be." Then the lawyer cleared his throat. "Today we are here to read the final will and testament of Mr. Robert Hayes." The room became completely silent. The lawyer began reading slowly. "To my beloved family, thank you for filling my life with love and memories." Hearing Dad's words made my chest tighten. But the real moment everyone was waiting for came next. "The family home," the lawyer read, "along with all associated property, savings accounts, and investment portfolios, will be transferred to my eldest son, Daniel Hayes." Daniel's lips slowly curved into a victorious smile. He leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and let out a satisfied breath. A few relatives glanced at me awkwardly. The lawyer finished the document. "That concludes the will." Daniel chuckled quietly. "Well," he said, looking around the room, "looks like Dad trusted me with everything." Then he turned directly toward me. "I'll make sure it's managed properly." The implication was clear. He had won, and I had lost. But instead of reacting the way he expected, I simply smiled. I leaned slightly toward the lawyer and asked quietly, "Is that all?" The lawyer paused. "Yes, according to the will." Daniel laughed softly. "You heard him." But I asked one more question. "Did my father leave any letters?" The lawyer froze for a moment. Then he slowly looked back at the documents. Daniel rolled his eyes. "Oh, please," he said. "You think there's some hidden treasure or something?" But the lawyer suddenly said something that changed the entire room. "Actually, there is an envelope." Everyone looked up. Daniel sat forward. What envelope? The lawyer pulled out a sealed letter. Written across the front were simple words in my father's handwriting. Open if necessary. The lawyer carefully opened the envelope. The paper inside looked old, like it had been written years ago. He began reading. Dear family, if you are hearing this letter, it means the inheritance has probably caused some tension. Several people shifted in their seats. I know Daniel will likely believe he has won everything. Daniel's smile stiffened. But money has never been the true measure of a person. The lawyer continued. Daniel has always chased success and wealth, so I have given him the things he values most. Daniel frowned. But my other child showed me something more important. Loyalty, patience, and compassion. My heart pounded. So to them, I leave something different. The lawyer reached into the envelope again. He pulled out a small brass key and a property document. This deed, the lawyer explained, transfers ownership of the mountain land behind the old hunting cabin. Daniel laughed loudly. That worthless land? He shook his head. Congratulations. You inherited dirt. But the lawyer continued reading. 10 years ago, I quietly purchased the mineral rights beneath that land. The room went silent. Recent geological surveys confirmed the presence of large natural gas reserves beneath the property. Daniel stopped laughing. The lawyer placed a final document on the table. There is already a signed exploration agreement with an energy company. My cousin whispered, How much is it worth? The lawyer looked at the number on the contract and spoke slowly. The estimated value exceeds $20 million. Daniel's face turned pale. That's impossible. But the documents were real. Signed, stamped, legally binding. He looked at me with disbelief. You knew about this? I shook my head. No. Then I smiled again. Dad just knew us. Daniel stood up angrily. This is ridiculous. But the lawyer calmly replied, Everything here was arranged years ago. Daniel grabbed his coat. This isn't over. Then he stormed out of the office, the door slamming shut behind him. After everyone left, the lawyer handed me the envelope. There's one more note, he said. Inside was a small handwritten message. Money reveals who people truly are, my father had written, but character reveals who they were meant to be. I sat there quietly, for a long moment. Daniel had received the wealth he always chased. But my father had given me something far more valuable. Trust, faith, and proof that he had understood both of us perfectly. Because sometimes the person who grabs everything ends up losing the most important thing of all. And that day, as I walked out of the lawyer's office holding that small brass key, I realized something. My father hadn't just written a will. He had written the final lesson of his life.